Oh, oh wow. We're way up here. Oh, wow. Kind of some weird stuff going on down there. At least we're way up here. That's a good way not to have to worry about it. Apparently, there's murder hornets. You guys have murder hornets down there? We ain't got none of them up here, so we're doing okay. Oh yeah, you got everybody lost their jobs. Ha! 30 million people. Well, you know, maybe you can all, pick potatoes. Oh, those are all getting thrown out because nobody wants them. Ah, well, you know, what are you gonna do? Hey, Donnie! Donnie! How many people gonna die, Donnie? Do you even, care a little bit? Nah. Ah, what you gonna do, man? Looks like everybody's gonna open up down there. I'm very glad I'm up here. Because you guys are all about to get sick again. How the hell did you guys do that? Damn, man, I'm glad I'm up here. I'm just saying, it's a long way down. Check's in the mail. Apparently I got a check sitting in my mailbox. Got a signature from, Sharpie guy. Wow, that's awesome. Thank God it's got a Sharpie signature on it. Then it's real money, I guess. Apparently, they finally arrested the guys for murdering the other guy and chasing him down and hunting him. I guess that's now kind of wrong. I guess. You can get away with a lot in Donald's America. That's why I'm up here. I don't want to be down there none. What the hell? Are we trying, invade Venezuela? I've been up here. I don't even know, man. Shit. And then the last thing, I guess, is there's billionaires out there. There's one of them. Oh, damn, there's another one of them freaking Starlink satellites. They're all over here. Do you guys really need, super fast Wi-Fi on your yacht in the middle of... No, that's not a problem for you, huh? Wow, who the hell wants... Oh, billionaires want the satellite so they can have fast internet on their fucking yacht. Jeez, man. All right, let's talk about real stuff. What is going on here? Nope, wrong one. Oh no. I did the wrong thing. Ah, there we go. Bam. Bam. No. Uh-oh. I'm so good at this stuff. I tell you what. Oh, that's that. Oh, that's a flash. Ah, there we go. Ah, we got it. All right, welcome back to my basement. Hello. I am your host. I'm actually on planet Earth. My name is Wah. This is episode 96. I'm using this as my printer didn't work tonight, so I'm using my tab computer. I have problems with light down here. I don't know if you have noticed. Let's get rid of that stuff and go down. All right, now if you talk, I can see you. All right. So, today is episode 96. March. Not March, man. It's May. That's the whole wrong word there, buddy. May 7th, 2020. Live and Let Die. The title of this is because apparently when Donald was out touring a mask plant, somebody blasted the Guns N' Roses classic Live and Let Die. Basically to honor, to acknowledge the approach that the United States is about to take with the COVID-19, the coronavirus. Been a weird few weeks, I'm going to be honest with you. Not the happiest, best, funnest weeks. I think everybody at home kind of stuck around, and this is, of course, part of my digital diary for this period. Last 2 weeks have been really weird, as have been many of the weeks. Partially because we've totally pretty much squandered the whole thing of spending a couple months shut down. The whole idea behind this shutdown, we're going to talk about this in a second, was to, get control, and so we could understand where the virus was, who had it, start setting up the testing, have all the hospital supplies ready. And because of this weird inability for the federal government to actually get their shit together and any kind of form. We've just had a couple months of kind of nothing. And now they're kind of like, well, we're telling you guys to open up. It's up to you whenever you're ready. And it's so weird because the virus hit really hard in New York and on the coast, a little bit more in Oregon, because it started to spread there way faster before really people started to shut down and slow it down. And so some places that hadn't really been hit yet saw that and kind of have acted like they've already experienced the worst of it and have kind of just gone on, like, you know, acting like it's already happened, it's already passed, because it happened, oh, that was in New York, yeah, it's done, we're not going to have to worry about that here. And just that makes no sense. What happens in the higher population density, it means that just more people get it more quickly, right? Just because lower population density just means the spread's going to be slower. It doesn't really... that's going to affect the mortality rates. And this is why I think over the next couple weeks, I'm kind of skipping ahead a little bit, but we're going to see a spike in cases, which is just like the U.S. is already kind of this hotbed for the world right now. And over the summer, it's going to get even worse. Now, I want to shift gears a little quick and talk about what's going on here on Spaceship Earth, because apparently we have been invaded by murder hornets, and there are these Asian, they're huge, they're like really big hornets, and they apparently hunt bees, honeybees. I saw a nice video of this, and there's like 30 of these hornets attacking like 30,000 bees, and they just go in and they switch into just kill mode and start just like chopping them in half and tossing them. So this has come out the last little week that these started showing up, and then this other video showed that there's apparently a defense that the Japanese honeybees have developed. And it's great because what they do is let the hornet come into the nest, and then they all like kind of snap their fingers, and you see them kind of warming this up. And then they all get on the hornet and then start shaking their asses real fast and make the heat, the CO2 rise and the heat right, and end up cooking the hornet like in this little ball of ass-shaking bees. And so I think what we need now, and I don't know how to do this scientifically, but if there's some way, like we need some kind of like karate like bee kid, right, to just go learn from the Japanese bees how to do the rumpa shake, right? And so they can be learning, and you'll have, you know, Daniel-san as the American honeybee over there learning the Japanese technique, you know, to shake a butt. And then he can be learning it, and he'll just be dancing with like the bee Miyagi, and he'll be teaching him, and he'll just be shake a butt, and Daniel won't understand, right? And he'll just be shake a butt, okay, I'm shaking my butt, all right, that's fun. And then finally, like the big super hornet comes in, and then all of a sudden Miyagi's like shake a butt, and Daniel's like oh, and he starts shaking his butt, and it starts working. I'm telling you, man, there is not a movie there. There was a movie there. That's the bit. So now moving on to something not quite as funny, although that really probably wasn't that funny. It's kind of hard to tell. There are 30 million people now unemployed in the United States. This is roughly a fifth of the workforce, about 20%. We're going to see unemployment rates going really high now. This is why they're trying to reopen. And the idea here is that we can somehow reopen without having this grind going. And what's going to happen, and you've already seen this, and this is the thing that's shown up in the last few weeks, is we've seen the devastation that's happened in the meat packing industry. And a lot of people aren't really that familiar with it. This was one of my first introductions to the real world, as it were, from my sheltered high school existence. I had to do a book report. And one of the books that I ended up doing it on was a book called The Jungle, which is this book from the earlier 20th century, I think it's like the teens or 20s. I'd have to look up exactly when it came out. I should probably have done that before I was going to reference it. But in that book, it talks about what goes on in America's meatpacking plants. And it led to, essentially, like the U.S. Department of Agriculture kind of taking this over, and meat inspectors starting to exist, because there was all sorts of crazy stuff going on. People losing fingers, hands, people falling into vats. And because of the nature of the work, it's always been work that's been done by lower income folks and just working class people and a lot of immigrants and a lot of immigrant labor. And that's what it is now. And so what's happened over the last few months is they've been absolutely smashed by this virus, because in those communities you have these low income workers often living in similar spaces, not having any kind of sick pay or off time or sick leave. So they're working sick, going home sick, around everybody, working in very tight quarters with no you can't sterilize a meat packing floor, right? You can't go in there with the Clorox and sterilize everything, because there's meat that your people are going to eat. So you can't have, it doesn't work, right? So those three factors really. So there's been 5,000 cases in these meat plants. They've shut down a bunch of them. There's been 3, apparently meat inspectors have died. And so, these are just even the folks who are just in the plants, because there's so much virus there. But that's what every industry could be like if we don't stop. And putting this, this is one of the reasons why a lot of the grocery store chains and other things have started to implement more things, because at corporate headquarters, when you're looking at how many of your employees have died so far, it's just a different kind of calculation. And the problem that we have is that the President of the United States is a sociopath. And I'll talk about that in a minute. The USPS, by the way, was not included in the bailout, and apparently over the last few days there was a new Postmaster General installed, who's one of Don's friends from Mar-a-Lago. Apparently some guy in the logistics company who sold out a while back, probably the guy who told him that letters need to cost 4 times as much as they do. So get ready for that coming fairly soon as they start to gut the Postal Service. So Donald versus the virus. There's like 70,000 people have died. The numbers aren't exact, and they're going up big. They're going to go, and the graph is now, I talked about this early on and posted, they're not updating numbers over the weekend. So you see these massive drop-offs every week, so these huge drop-off curves. And now they're trying to act like, they actually posted one the other day, that one of these drop-off curves, because of the way they've decided to count the numbers and do reporting, they're claiming that that's enough to reopen. They actually blocked the CDC from putting out these guidelines for businesses on how to reopen and what you needed to look for, how you needed to do it, saying they were overly prescriptive, because it was stuff like, you probably shouldn't have people sitting next to each other, and guidelines for how to do this. And there's so many daycares, there's so much stuff, and they're just trying to act like it's all nothing. I actually wrote on here yesterday, moving toward pardon of Flynn. We'll talk about that a little while back. They've been using, again, the distractions from this to implement pretty much anything that they want to as far as Justice Department stuff goes. Bill Barr has really shown himself to be a complete and utter toady. They dropped today the charges against Michael Flynn, who admitted to lying. He admitted to his crime, pled guilty. And now they've decided to stop trying to pursue charges against him. This is all political, and even Barr came out and said nobody else gets this special treatment. This is a special case to make Donald happy. That's where, for history's sake, that's where justice is right now in this country. I want to say this: the president does not care how many people die here. He's made it pretty clear, and I'm going to read this quote from you real quick. He says, if we didn't do it, the minimum we would have lost was 1,200,000, 1,400,000, 1,500,000. That's the minimum, he claimed. We would have lost probably higher. It's possible higher than 2.2. Even as he praised himself for the lockdowns, Trump insisted that people would be safe without them. People are going to be safe. We've learned a lot. We've learned about the tremendous contagion, but we have no choice. We can't stay closed as a country. We're not going to have a country left. See, the virus will pass. It will go. Will it come back? It might. It could. Some people say yes, but it will pass. So this is a quote from an interview the other day. He's talking about reopening the country. And what he's acknowledging here is that the experts have told him that doing this is going to kill a lot of people, and the virus is going to come back, and we're going to have a spike. What he's saying here is we're not going to have a country left. What he means is he's not going to have a country left to be the chief executive of, because he will lose his election. What has protected him over the last few years has been the economy and the economic situation. And it's protected him because a lot of people have been making a lot of money. And a lot of that money just disappeared. And the question for them, as they ask themselves, is Donald going to be the kind of person who can build the economy to bring it back? Or should we perhaps go with somebody sane and rational? And that is what's going to show up over this next little while. The campaign, which is run by this guy named Brad Parscale, who I think actually, by the way, is going to end up in prison. They tweeted today about how their Death Star of a campaign is now fully functional and ready to start blowing up innocent planets and killing lots of people. They call it a Death Star. The whole campaign for them is going to be a death march this whole summer as they're trying to act like thousands of people aren't dying every day. Some of the stuff, and it's been really weird because the United States is a very big country, and each state is many states are the size of countries and generate enough news and information. When you have this kind of super news event, this kind of world-changing thing, it's hard to keep track of what the hell's going on everywhere. So I don't think a lot of people have been paying attention to stuff, and a lot of people have their own state issues, and you can't really, even as somebody who's a news maven, kind of follow. I can't follow 50 states of what's going on, right? And I can barely follow what's going on here in Colorado. And so I think a lot of people haven't seen what's going on nationally if you're not interested in that. And just seeing the reaction to something I'm going to talk about later, this Plandemic, it's just really weird. It's a really weird time, so I just want to acknowledge that if you're feeling that. That's been something that we keep talking about here in the house, how surreal things are, because as they're closed down, we're having this weird kind of discussion about opening up, but it's going to just be a very strange summer. My wife noted this, and other people, you'll probably see this a little bit more. The president has now officially refused to ever wear a mask. He's not going to wear a mask in public. And so the MAGA folks, of course, are following right along with that. So they're not going to follow those guidelines ever anywhere. There's been multiple shootings now. There's a shooting in Oklahoma where somebody was told to leave a restaurant because they weren't going to... which is kind of weird being at a restaurant, but I think they were just waiting in line, and they didn't want to wear a mask, and they shot the employees there. So we're going to see that. And the partisan divide is what's so weird about this. And this is one of the things why I kind of started this show, because I wanted to talk about what I see as reality, because it's just so warped now. And as, if... This is, I know, not something that I know a lot of people want to contemplate, but I have to think about these kind of things. But if Donald is able to win the election somehow or another, this all becomes permanent. I mean, that's what it is. And there's not going to be justice for a lot of these things. And Bill Barr is going to get away with it. And all of this stuff. The last election we had in 2018 is the only thing that led to, again, the impeachment and all that. But again, the Republicans there solidified. And having then said that was okay, right? What is not, right? And there's nothing else that you're going to stop. Again, once they said the kids in cages were okay, moving to saying, yes, your grandparents all need to die so Wall Street doesn't have a bad quarter, that's what's happening right now. And that's the argument that they're making. And it's weird because the corporate media is kind of with it, which is super weird. But not totally surprising. Oh, herd immunity. Wow. So there's been a lot of right-wing weirdos talking about how herd immunity is something that we can get to really quickly. States that the black people are 4 times more likely to pass away from this. Yes, this is something that I think I have a hard time not thinking eventually changed some of Donald's approach to the virus as they saw that a lot of the victims here happen to be older minorities. And then it becomes, well, then we can definitely sacrifice these people. Let's open up. right? And I don't think that that's going to work, because he's saying that unless, and here's the thing for him personally, and I tell you this with absolute assurity, the difference between one person dying, 10 people dying, 100 people dying, 1,000 people dying, 10,000 people dying, 100,000 people dying, 300,000, like, these are just numbers to him. And they would just be, the difference for him between 10,000 people dying from this and 100,000 people from dying from this is a zero. It's literally nothing. It's a placeholder on a piece of page, and it's the same thing for 100,000 to 1,000,000. And he would still consider himself to have been a complete and utter success if millions of Americans die. And he will, because he's just not sane. And this is the thing that people need to realize, that he is just not. And it's been one of those things that as people try to lie to themselves, and our media has covered this for a long time, anytime anybody kind of challenges him a little bit, he loses it. And he's never had a full conversation where somebody's been like, well, no, that's bullshit, you're lying. And then just, moves on. And just establishes that, no, we don't believe you. And so everybody has to act like they believe him. And this whole naked emperor thing, we now literally have thousands of... Don't like having a cough during this time, right? But we literally have thousands of people dying each day. And that's not getting through to his people. The mass movement stuff, and this was kind of why I started this, because it was just like, guys, this is what's going on. This is going to be bad. So get ready for this. Herd immunity is not where all the weak die off, by the way. Herd immunity is where enough people have immunity that they're not passing around the virus, and then the people who are vulnerable don't get sick. It's not the vulnerable people get sick and die. That's eugenics. And this is one of the things that they've kind of flipped on its head, and the alt-rights jumped all over this. And the bots and also the Russian and the people trying to build division have also really started to push this whole fascist crackdown thing. It's really disturbing to see how effective it's been. There are protests, people saying, I want to go out and get sick. And I understand the economic motivation of it, and we're going to talk about that in a second. We got the check. We got our check a few weeks ago, way late than what it should have been. And there should have been more understanding that this was not going to need to be a one-time thing. But they're pressuring now people to get back out and get back to work. I got a letter from the president with the Sharpie signature. Like I said was going to happen, right? Like I said, the campaign, they're using this, again, as campaign stuff, saying, well, you can't say that he didn't do anything. He sent everybody a check. He's got a signature right there. And it works for dumb people. That's killing me. Not really. I mean, that's annoying. But what isn't? It was unfortunately passed away. Yes, and that's I guess that's what you call we call them old age homes. Pretty slick term there, huh? Yeah, and that's what's been a lot of the deaths here. That's been kind of the idea that a lot of folks on the right have just kind of signed on to, that this isn't a dangerous thing for other folks. And that's, I mean, if you're willing to sacrifice 25% of the people who are over 70 in a society, I think that's going to be difficult. So we're going to keep seeing this grinding death all summer long. And it's going to be a little bit vague, I think, too, because of that skew of who it's going to be that's dying. It's going to be just such a surreal summer. I'm sorry. It's going to be really weird, and it's going to get worse, just so you know. Yes, we got a letter from him. Yeah, he sent out a letter to everybody. I think I have it on my desk somewhere. Yep. Right there, Department of the Treasury. Dear taxpayers, we sent you back some money. There's the signature. It's right there. It says right there at the top. The White House. Using the official White House letterhead as a campaign promise to take credit for spending my kids' money, because this is all deficit spending. By the way, this is going to be, we're going to have next year a deficit. And by the way, deficit is a yearly term, right, between income and outlay. We're going to have a deficit next year of, now it looks like $3.5–4 trillion. The whole thing of not, so, when we had really good times like we've had over the last few years, what we needed to be doing was balancing our national budget and paying down our debt and getting into a better place. But instead, the deficit's gone up every year because the tax cuts keep up, and they keep the tax cuts went, and they keep cutting it down, and the spending kept going up because cutting spending is hard, and it makes people mad. So they don't like to cut spending. So Republicans say that, but they never do it. And so spending goes up, revenue goes down. We've seen the deficit go wild, and now it's going to explode. And the problem, again, when it explodes, because the biggest increasing item in spending over the last few years was interest on the debt. We're not going to be able, they're going to say we can't afford Medicare for all, we can't afford college, we can't afford all these things because of all these spending increases, but the spending is because of the debt and because of the interest. That's where we're going to be stuck, and that's what sucks. And I'm going to have to stay here and be like, guys, I told you. Does that matter? No, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter that I told you. All I get to do is stand around and be like, hey, don't jump off the... But there's... Yeah. What are you going to do, man? Yeah, apparently they screwed up with those refunds too, a number of dead folks, and also they sent a bunch of them to students who had been here, filed the tax return, and then went back to their country. You know who didn't get those checks at all? Anybody whose family has somebody in there who doesn't have a standard issue Social Security number. So any immigrant families, if you file a tax return and you have somebody with a different number, and I don't know exactly how it was, but I think it was basically anybody with naturalized or with green cards. If you have a green card and you file on your taxes as a dependent or something, you didn't get any money. They said no for all of that. And I'd have to look at that a little bit more specific, but that was the whole where immigrants aren't getting checks. That was because anybody who's married to an immigrant they would say, well, no, we're not going to send any money to families like this because white supremacy. Again, it's been real. It's not a joke. There was a story in Georgia that happened. These guys saw a black man jog by their house, got a gun, got in their truck, drove ahead of him on the street, and I know this because I've seen the video, got out of the truck, tried to stop him, he tried to go around, and they killed him in the fight because they're confronting him with weapons. There was no arrests. A number of prosecutors had been recused. Turns out one of the prosecutors knew the people who chased the man down, and it's come out now that the man who killed the other one knew the man he killed, that they had interaction prior to this. He's been arrested today, and this happened right about 20 minutes before I came onto the show. This has been one of those stories that's been building for a little while, and this has been one of the big dangers of having, again, white supremacists in charge. And because this keeps going on, and there's a picture of this guy who did this, standing with the governor of Georgia, Kemp, wearing his MAGA hat. And these people feel empowered to do this kind of stuff. And if they win in November, they will feel justified in using that power however they want. Because at that point, anything they do, it goes. And then it's about building a legacy beyond that, which means destroying all opposition. Apparently, we tried to start a coup in Venezuela. For those of you who don't know, there was a Bay of Pigs, the whole Bay of Pigs fiasco in the late 60s. We tried to instigate a rebellion in Cuba by getting a bunch of dissidents and some military training and some stuff. And then they were supposed to incite a popular revolt, which was going to overthrow Castro and yada yada. And look, hey, we get out of it for a couple mil, don't even spend anything, no American lives lost. Easy peasy Japanesey, complete utter failure, did nothing but just make us look like fools. So looks like they tried to do the same thing in Venezuela with Maduro and tried to get some mercenaries to start recruiting an army and then go through it, and it failed miserably and utterly. And then all the people they recruited have basically got abandoned down there. A number have been captured. They've been on TV now in Venezuela over the last few days. Would be a huge story, possibly ending a political career if we lived in a rational world. Thousands of people weren't dying because our president's a sociopath. But that's what we will live. So this was like it's kind of a footnote. We're trying to overthrow governments with mercenary armies. Last thing, billionaires and B.S. I'll tell you what, this world that we've seen, the coronavirus and people dropping out of the economy, and then the economy going to shit, it's not because 10 billionaires got sick, guys. It's not because 15 world beaters. It's not because John Galt and all those guys got all together and then they all happened to get a virus and they all got sick and then the economy went to crap. The value is generated from work, and the extra value is collected by the people at the top. This is one of the things that Warren Buffett probably bothers me the most about him and people listening to him. There's been a couple articles, and I'll talk about Elon Musk too, that guy all day long. This whole Starlink, he's the one building these Starlink satellites. They want to put up thousands of little satellites so they can have a mesh internet network all around the world. Again, so when you're on your yacht in the middle of the freaking Pacific, you got fast internet. That's what this is for. And claiming that this is somehow, this will be for rural folks, because rural folks are what really billionaires really totally care about. Yeah, run a freaking line. You can run lines in the ground. You don't need to take away the stars from everyone. But that's what Elon Musk is doing, and screw that guy. But Warren Buffett is one of those who's got a much better PR team. One of the richest men in the world, mainly through investing. But here's the thing about this, and there's been a great meme that's been going around as people see and they talk about it. It's this person talking about their family business and talking about like, if I was a billionaire, here's what I would do with all that money. And the thing is, because if you think like that, you're never going to be a billionaire. Because to be a billionaire, you have to be someone who had that $100 million, right? Had more money than they could ever spend in their life. They could buy anything that they wanted. They never have to lift another finger and then say, I need a lot more than this. I need a lot more than this, right? And I need more, like way more, 10 times, 100 times more than this. This is more than I could ever use, but I need 100. That's the kind of people who become billionaires. It's not people who are like, I really want to see how many lives I could save with this $100 or this $10,000, or I've got $1 million here. Let's give this to see what I can do. Those people would never get $1 billion because you'd give it away before you had to squeeze everyone else to get that extra money. Because the value is created, even as a company, right? And all the companies that I've worked for, the reason why I'm employed there is because I generate more value than I cost. That's straightforward. That's how basic business works. And so you see, when an economy collapses, who generates the value? And this whole BS about job creators, it's such horseshit. And we see it exposed completely now. And so from a philosophical, societal standpoint, these discussions are over. And so the question now is going to be, how do we implement this going forward? And how do we then take this understanding where we know that all these rich people have been just fucking lying. And how, if we can. And that's been the thing, because, wealth inequity has been, as anybody who's watched the show more than a few times knows, that's been my big thing. And it takes these kind of pandemics to do any kind of reset on that. And the question is if we can learn that lesson from this, or if instead we end up with people sitting around watching Plandemic and just following deeper and deeper into these conspiracy theory holes. And this is one of the things that sucks about the internet and the way predictive algorithms work and all this crap, because it's like, oh, you happen to be a person who doesn't quite have the capacity to see that this is complete and utter horseshit? Well, guess what? I've got 50,000 hours of more horseshit to feed you. And then it just gets worse and worse and worse. Ah, no worries. I love the comments. I wish I had more comments. That gives me stuff to talk about. Thank you. You're way too kind. But yeah, I'm just so sick of this kind of stuff where we're venerating greed, and that's it. And I grew up, and I'm old enough now to remember when it changed, and it was Michael freaking Douglas, right? It's like this, kind of. I'm not a liberal icon, but certainly not. But him just being there and being that Wall Street asshat who is Donald, right? Greed is good. Right? That was his whole thing. That was his big speech. That was the big Wall Street movie, the big thing in the 80s when all this came out. Greed is good. One of the people that Trump, by the way, has pardoned was Michael Milliken, who was a famous junk bond trader, like the worst people from this area, the worst greed people. He has cleared them in the eyes of history. And that's one of the things that's happened. And as I've said, I think this summer you're going to see the U.S. a little bit more revealed for what it is, which is a sick and pretty disturbed place. There's some wonderful, absolutely amazing beauty and joy here, but there's a rot, and it's all because of that clumped up money. So until we can get that not sorted out, I don't know. Sorry, I went a little weird on this on the end here, but man, the whole billionaire problem is a big one. And it's I was trying to explain this a little bit to my son the other day, because we got a little tree. We don't have any trees actually on any real trees. We got some little ones, but we've got one like right on the next of the fence on like 3 sides, and it dumps all sorts of seeds on our lawn. So much so that they're overwhelming my flower garden, which is or my vegetables, but that's a whole other thing. But in this one place, my son was looking at this and he's like, "Is that grass?" And I was like, "No, those are the little trees. They're growing up there." And he's like, "Yeah, there's a lot of them." And I was like, "Yeah." And I was like, "Look at all those. They're all competing because there can only be one tree here, and there's hundreds of them, and they throw them everywhere, right? And they're all over there. But it's that competitive." And Warren Buffett, he talks about it, he's like, well, I just got lucky with the skill set. And it's like, no, it's the sociopathy. That's what lets you keep collecting after all these other people have nothing and suffering, and you keep wanting more. And you keep setting up companies and you demand that they have these returns, and all you're looking at is a spreadsheet because you're a sociopath. Warren Buffett's a sociopath. And that's the thing that people don't get about why we're so fucked up right now. Warren Buffett's a sociopath. And until people can really, really get that's the only way you can get that rich, is to just not fucking care. The Democratic Party did a good job of rejecting all the billionaires that tried to get the nominee. Now, of course, Biden needs to get that money, and so he's going to have to go ask them, which is why I don't think that he's going to pick Warren to be his VP. But I'm glad of that, because you have to be mentally broken to get that much money and keep it. And until everybody understands that, this is why I'm being kind of dangerous, why I'm never going to be able to get on actual real TV. But that's the moral place we got to get to. It's just you can't fathom it. But that's the standard, is when you take a bad thing, which is greed, and you say that it's a good thing. This is what happens. There's this really good, and this goes into a really deep philosophical conversation about the nature of morality and where morals come from and what they come from. And it's funny because I was actually reading. I've got a friend of mine who's a doctor, of philosophy, which is actually funny because PhD is actually everybody who has a PhD is a philosophy doctorate. That's what PhD. That's what the PH stands for is philosophy. Anyway, and he was talking about kind of the actual terms that they come up for to describe these different places, and it's just one of those things where we see, I think, through the results of this, right, whether or not a thing is good or bad. And this is why, these have iterated throughout human history and human population. This is why we've kind of determined that these things are good or bad, because we've seen them play out, and we see what happens when usury and nepotism and things like this come up. And this is where we build these moral systems to avoid these kind of things. Sorry. I'm just kind of lecturing now. You guys are still listening, so I appreciate you coming out tonight. Show is pretty much done. I hope everyone stays safe. It's going to be a rough summer. And hopefully we can all vote this out and get this sorted out and move towards a better world. And I can be like, hey, we've made a good step to escape dystopia, and not, yes, guys, escaping dystopia. That is what I called it, and now we must really do it. Which is what's going to happen if it wins. Yeah, people don't realize how crazy it can get because people just don't think and don't spend a lot of time in those dark places, and I just have lived there for way too long. All right, you guys, peace out, and you guys are too kind. Thanks, I really appreciate it. Hope everything's good in Japan and the UK. We're pretty much the whole world, man. Found like 3 people in the whole world that like my stuff. That's awesome. All right, y'all take care. Peace out. And we're doing good here. The family's doing good. Pregnancy's rolling along. There's going to be a new Taylor in a little while, guys. Hopefully. Knock on the wood. So peace out, and y'all have a good one. Good night.